Okay. Well, should we start?
Yes, we're
right.
recording right now.
Okay. So hang on one second. We'll get to my slideshow here. All right, there we are. And just so you know, this program is being recorded and the link will be in the Manatee and Sarasota newsletters. The recording is the property of the League of Women Voters of Florida, and no portion of it can be duplicated without the written permission of the League of Women Voters of Florida. Please, for any questions that you have, place them in chat to Alice Newland, the president of the League of Women Voters of Manatee County. Alice will be monitoring chat and present the questions to the speakers at the end of the presentation. If the question is for a specific speaker, please indicate which speaker you would like the question to go to. So Legislative Priorities 2023, we're coming up on legislative session, which starts March 7th and goes through May 5th. And then we have our lobby days coming up March 7th through the 8th. So there's a lot going on. As you all probably know, we select priorities based on local league input, and then everybody votes and they determine which priorities will be focused on for legislative session. And this year, those are voting rights and election reform, reproductive health and justice, education, and natural resources. We're very fortunate to have very special presenters with us. We have for education, Jill Lewis-Spector, who is the chair of education, Stacey Kroto, who is the co-chair of reproductive health and justice, and Judith Hushon, who is co-chair of natural resources. So they'll be able to get into the weeds as much as we need to based on what's coming at us this session. So for Florida, basically, for voting rights and election reform, Florida election officials conducted what was considered a fair election last November, where results were finalized before the evening even ended. By most measures, the state had an equally successful election in 2020, but that didn't stop them from bringing forth election reform and what we call voter suppression bills in the subsequent two legislative sessions. And pretty much all election supervisors critique those as being not necessary, with both political parties responding in that way. The past two sessions have resulted in litigation from and there's a whole coalition of groups which are working to fight Senate Bill 90, which we call the voter suppression bill. The challenge with SB 90 is it makes it harder for all Floridians to cast a ballot by mail. That's the process we're going through now. So a lot of people who registered to vote by mail going into the November election think they don't have to do it again because they just did it, but they do. So we're really promoting that a lot, state and local. There's also several other issues with the bill. It limits vote by mail drop off and also limits how vote by mail drop boxes can be used. It's a lot. So the Senate, so the litigation is on appeal. We won at the first trial, and it was appealed. The oral argument for that was in September of last year. It looks like there were some wins, but not all aspects of Judge Walker's rulings are going to be upheld. The appellate judges appeared skeptical about much of Judge Walker's rulings. We're also involved right now in a amicus on the Moore v. Harper, a North Carolina congressional gerrymandering case that's being heard by the U.S. Supreme Court. And we're also plaintiffs, the state is, in challenging Florida's new congressional map for violating the Florida Constitution. Coming into this legislative session, there are several election issues which may be put forth by the state legislature this year, including regulating what poll watchers can see and do, more bills on maintaining voter rolls and fine-tuning ID requirements and exemptions, and reviewing state certification standards for voting equipment and defining post-election audits. So there's a lot of potential bills that could come forward on this at this point. They have not been brought forward. The state is a member of the Florida Election Protection Coalition, which consists of more than 50 different organizations. They monitor legislation, rulemaking. They host a weekly call with the league, and they're focused on advocacy, mobilization, legal, and communications. So now we're going to jump to Judy. And who's going to present to us about natural resources and what we can all get involved with there. Judy, it's yours.
Okay. When people think of Florida, they think of our natural resources, our sun, our beaches, lush vegetation, beautiful birds, etc. Water is key to what we are focusing on. I also have heard that there probably is going to be a clean water bill. They're talking about, there's a skeleton one up now. They're talking about bringing one in now. So we are focused on improving water quality. The other thing the whole league is doing is collecting petitions on clean water. That's the Rights of Water proposed constitutional amendment. And you all should be, have you all had education on that? No answer. Okay. I would hope you have. If not, you can go to the Rights of Water, pull up the forms, and there have to be 900,000 ultimately signatures collected. So any signatures you can collect and submit are exceedingly valuable. Climate is important. We have more hurricanes and tropical storms than any other state. And what is happening there seems to be that it will be money for resiliency planning and for beach renourishment. So I think we'll see bills that look like those. We're going to support funding for electric vehicles and networks of charging stations. And there are a couple of bills out there starting right now to fill in some gaps in charging stations, add more charging stations. One of the problems is, I don't know how many of you have Teslas. There are Tesla chargers, and Tesla people can use regular chargers, but regular people can't use Tesla chargers. So it looks like there's a good network until it isn't, until you can't use that Tesla charger. So this is one of the things. Right now, it's mostly in the big cities. It's not, it needs to get there need to get more of them along major highways, and they need to be put in places where you can stop and get lunch, or you can stop and take a break for 10 or 15, 20 minutes while your car recharges. Tourist destinations, and many of us are logical places where we really should be getting a number of charging stations. Okay. Solar. So we are supporting expanded solar. It looks like there will not be a return of the net metering bill this year. That's a good thing, because the net metering bill was terrible, and it took a lot of effort to defeat it. The word on the street is that we will not have one this year. However, we do want to give more support to people who want to install solar on their rooftops and solar on their businesses, solar on their public buildings. And this is important. The new bill, for the federal bill, is giving you nice refunds for doing this. The state isn't making it any easier. So we are the Sunshine State, but if say insurance companies are denying insurance to some homes with roofs older than 10 years, and the net metering thing is a problem, but we don't have it right now. And it would be beneficial if there were state requirements for certain types of buildings to install solar. For example, public buildings and large shopping centers. Anytime you have a large flat rooftop, we should consider requiring local legislation that you have to put in solar panels on your rooftop. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So we'll have questions. Well, Judy may not be available at the end, but if you have questions, we can certainly reach out to Judy and make sure that she has those available. And so now I'd like to turn
Thank you.
over to Reproductive Health and Justice, Stacey Kroto. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stacey Kroto. I'm with the local league St. Petersburg area and happy to be here. We have 4 goals in reproductive health and justice this year. They are to advocate against any proposed additional restrictions on abortion. And right now, everything is on the table. We're expecting anything between a 5 and a 13-week ban. And nothing has been issued or filed as of yet, as of today. And but truthfully, it could be filed right at the beginning of session and move through committees quickly. Our second goal is to advocate against any form of contraception restrictions. And while the FDA approved the pharmacy selling the morning after pill over the counter or dispensing it at pharmacies with just a prescription, in Florida, the prior abortion laws require you to take that first pill in a doctor's office. And so the Florida Department of Health and ACA, the Agency for Healthcare Administration, has already issued notification to all pharmacies that they could face criminal penalties if they dispense these medicines directly. So there is still, a hoop to jump through for people who seek medication abortion. Our third goal is to advocate for legislation restricting government access to student athletes' menstrual information. Now, this is kind of a new one. The Florida High School Athletic Association uses the same doctor sign-off form or authorization form that several other states use. And there are questions on there for the doctor to fill in related to female athletes when they first had their first period and when they had their last period. And it's almost like period tracking information in an athletic form that seems kind of unnecessary. So in Florida, that information in those other states that use the same form, that information is not part of the form that goes to the school. The doctor can sign off on like the prior page, and that other information doesn't get filed with the school. For whatever reason, the Florida High School Athletic Association, which is all men, does require that part of the form to be included. And so it's a huge concern why, one, athletic coaches or even high schools would need to be tracking or having this information on file. And so the league at the state level is part of a coalition, Floridians for Reproductive Freedom, and we are pushing back against that. And as we move forward, that agency or that association continues to meet and debate over this issue, but their director has advised those other states that they should include that information. So right now, we're not getting any traction, but we're going to keep working on that. And lastly, we're going to support proposed legislation that would benefit pregnant people during their pregnancies and improve outcomes, particularly those that focus on marginalized populations. And I want to just mention the HB 15-week ban. That bill was actually a good bill addressing maternal and fetal health until it included the ban, and then it basically became an abortion ban. So there are good things that are coming out of that bill related to these panels that are going to seek to address fetal mortality. And so that information, I think it's like a data collection phase, and we'll know more about that as that data collection goes forward. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, technically there's no relevant bills filed as of today. Those pushing for further restrictions are likely going to provide as little notice as possible. We noted when the 15-week ban went through last session that it was assigned to as few committees as possible. And that is a tactic that the majority party uses in order to, one, have less people being able to come to Tallahassee to speak it before committees, and also to move it quickly to the floor for debate. Some people on the board and myself and my co-chair Ginger Mundy of Orange County met with LWV National this week. We are hoping to work toward some type of huge mobilization event if a ban is pursued and moves towards debate. When it hits one of the chambers for debate, we're hoping for a huge mass mobilization effort to Tallahassee. Please also pay attention to any action alerts that come from state. Next slide, please. I already mentioned this, the FRF Coalition, Floridians for Reproductive Freedom, and if you like, I can provide the link to Alice and she can share it. We are just one member of a one-member org of organizations all over Florida, and we are doing. There are various work groups in this group that are doing various things. Those are working on local campaigns to pass reproductive rights resolutions on the local level. For example, we were successful in passing a supportive reproductive rights resolution in the city of St. Petersburg, and that group is working with other municipalities to do the same. There's a Black in Repro group. There's also contraceptive access. And our initial program was emergency contraception in Publix. And through that program, and we were able to get Publix to put, while they wouldn't agree to remove their emergency contraception from behind the pharmacy counter, they did agree to put on the aisle where condoms are, that to direct people, like signage to direct people to the pharmacy counter for that type of drug. And I think that's a real success because Publix is our, flagship grocer, and we were able to move them, even if just to give information to customers. And we're also working on a EC in the ER, and there is a proposed bill for that, but I'm not sure if it has enough sponsors or if it'll be filed this session. And if it does, it might be a hard row to sow anyway, given the supermajority that we currently have. There's also a fake clinic work group, which we call, those are the emergency crisis pregnancy centers. And we have state money going towards some of these crisis pregnancy centers. And so we try to track them and follow that and make sure that they're complying with the law that goes with that funding, or the regulations that goes with that funding. And then there is a Florida Healthy Youth Alliance that's working on school boards to pass comprehensive sex ed. And their most recent success was Hillsborough County just passed a comprehensive sex ed. I know I've shared a lot of information. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding reproductive health right now, and we're kind of in perilous times. And a lot, whether we might expect the ban is really kind of determinant on optics and whether or not the governor will change his mind based on optics, since he is likely running for president, even though he hasn't announced it. So yes, there is a little politics in there, and he definitely cares about the optics. And so that's why we want to make as much noise as possible if anything gets filed. I will stick around for the remainder of this meeting, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacey. That was great. So now we go to Jill Lewis-Spector, who is the Chair of Education, and we'll turn it over to you, Jill.
All right, thank you so much. And hi, everybody. I'm really glad to be here tonight to share with you what the Education Action Team has been doing. We have focused on 3 different priorities this year. The first one is to support a curricular framework that includes broad common standards developed by educational experts that serves as a guide to local districts. The second is to promote diversity and non-discrimination based on race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, nationality, citizenship, socioeconomic status, and ability status in all publicly funded schools. And the third is to support requirements that state and local capital outlay funds and the assets they purchase must be able to be recouped by the school district before capital outlay funding can be released to a charter school. Next slide. So what are we expecting for this next session? We are actually expecting that more bills will be introduced that ignore Florida's Constitution. You may be aware that the Constitution, Article 1, Section 3, says that no money raised by taxation or public lands in any state for the support of public schools shall ever be under the control of any religious sect. And that is the Blaine Amendment. So if you hear reference to the Blaine Amendment, that's what that means. Article 9, that should be Article 9 of education is adequate provision shall be made by law for a uniform, efficient, safe, secure, and high-quality system of free public schools. So I'm not sure that everybody here is aware that a lot of your tax dollars this year and last year have been going to vouchers. So private schools are getting money, but they are certainly not subject to the same requirements as district public schools. And I'll get into that a little bit more later on. But in terms of the Constitution, one of the things is that the schools need to be uniform. But as we know, that is not the case. Public district schools have a lot of accountability in terms of assessment, teacher certification, administrator certification, how money is spent. But charter schools and private schools that are receiving taxpayer monies do not have those same accountability procedures. So this is not uniform. The Constitution also calls for high quality education systems. Well-educated Floridians can make decisions, solve problems, and work in a diverse society, unlike those who've had limited education and whose exposure to information is restricted. But again, we don't know how many teachers in private schools are certified because the private schools are not accountable at all to any of the taxpayers, even though taxpayer money is being used to pay for those vouchers that are being used for private schools. Next slide. The Constitution also requires a safe and secure system of education for all students. So that has to do with equality. And yet, last year, as you all know, the Don't Say Gay bill was passed. And we've heard quite a number of LGBTQ students talk about how unsafe they are feeling now. They used to be able to go to school that classrooms would have signs on the doors saying this is a safe place. That isn't happening anymore. Students whose sexual orientation is different from the expectation of the majority, they're being bullied in schools, and they're being, it's very harmful. They're traumatic. So this is, again, a system that is unequal. And these bills can discourage the most qualified teachers to enter the Florida school system. And right now we're experiencing about 5,000 teachers shortage. So this is something that is definitely affecting our education system. The last priority has to do with capital funding of charter schools. And education in Florida is underfunded by $4,000 per student as compared to the national average. I think we're number 48. Currently, charter schools receive taxpayer dollars for capital improvements and other assets. But a lot of these charter schools are closing. And the person who's selling it, from the charter school administrator, management company, whoever is selling the building, whoever owned it gets to keep whatever they receive from the state for capital improvements. That's not right. That money should go back to taxpayers and be used for public education. The loss of these dollars affects what's available to school districts across the state. It's an inequitable arrangement that affects the quality of programs that district public schools can provide. So how do we address our priorities? We do a number of things as the action team. We stay informed every time that we meet, and we do meet twice a month. We review the bills that have been posted. We make decisions about whether or not we support that bill. Do we want to provide testimony about it? Or do we want to oppose it and testify in opposition? We also attend quite a number of meetings of various groups. We have a Google Drive on which we have posted quite a number of articles on different topics: anti-woke, don't say gay, things to do with vouchers, charter schools, everything is categorized. There must be 75 or 80 articles there now. Members, they send me the articles and then I get to post them. We also keep each other posted on developments, so there's a lot of communication between meetings. We also educate. We prepare talking points for testimony. We are meeting with representatives. In fact, next week, our strike team for our different action teams at the state level will be going to Tallahassee to meet with representatives to talk about some of these bills. We write white papers. You may have seen some of these. They are posted at the League website, the Florida League website, under the education banner. And we write letters to the editor. The white papers and letters to the editor and other advocacy tools are also posted on our Google Drive. And we participate in local events. So many of us throughout the state are attending our school board meetings and reporting back to our action team what's going on there. We also try to build partnerships with the schools and other organizations that have similar priorities, and also individually or as part of alliances and sometimes with foundations. I have to tell you that this past week, I've probably attended 5 different meetings where whoever was running the meeting wanted to form an alliance with whoever was on the call or on the Zoom. And for some of them, it was the same people showing up. So I think what we need is a really big tent with a lot of these organizations in that tent, so we can be one large group that will have a lot of power, because that's, what the other side seems to be doing. They show up at these hearings where everybody is in the same color t-shirt, and the last hearing on HB1, which I'll get to in a few minutes, they even brought children with them to testify. So unless we're organized in that way, we won't have that same kind of power. We also do some work to try to connect with students. My own league in Sarasota ran a Why Vote contest. I think Broward County ran a contest for students. Those contest materials are on the Google Drive. We are working on forming a social media committee that is student-led, where they post to Instagram, and we're having a suffragette train luncheon in Sarasota County in just about a week. So we do quite a few things to address our priorities. It's not just one way of reaching people, of educating people, but it's very important for us that we stay informed, because Something is happening every single day in education in Florida. So sometimes what's happening actually goes beyond our priorities. There may be other bills or issues that are very important at the local or the state level, and that we have to learn about them and stay informed and discuss with voters to educate them. For instance, a couple of counties had this 1 mil referendum. And so we did some research on that. We prepared material for the public, which we put in local libraries so that the public could be informed on the 1 mil referendum. On the state level, you've probably all heard about HB1, which is a universal voucher program. And there is no way, even though that didn't fall exactly within one of our priorities, it is something that we are addressing in a very serious way. One way we're addressing it is we have prepared, and this probably looks a little strange right now, this is actually part of a trifold. So what you have over on the right is the cover of the trifold. And then you have, I think the next one, the second or the middle one is in the middle on the back. And then the one that's all the way on the left is one of the, it folds in. Okay, and you can see quite a bit of information on here. Okay, something about the Constitution, something about the choices that parents have for different types of schools that their kids could go to, and the fact that the research actually shows mixed outcomes depending on who, what you're using to measure the outcome and what school you're at. You know, there are some good charter schools and some not so good, and the same with private schools. So the outcomes are mixed. And then on the inside, what you have is a comparison of these 3 different types of schools. Whoops, can we go back to that slide? Thank you. So we have district, charter, and private schools. And on the left, you have all the things that schools might have or might not have. Some having to do with accountability, quite a few of them. Some having to do with safety, whether the school is in the neighborhood. You know, the school has always been the heart of a community. And when you have kids going to all these private schools and charter schools, they may not be going to a school in their community, and they may not feel a connection with the school outside of the school day. But district schools were always the place where you'd go to watch the football team, you'd meet other parents in the community, you would share stories about your kids and get to be friends, and the kids would become friends. But with dividing everybody up into these separate silos through these voucher programs and charter schools, there's less of that. So anyway, there is this useful chart. And then this is shows what percentage of students are going to these different kinds of schools in Florida. And on the right, we have some data about these various schools, including the Florida Policy Institute, that's FPI, found that in 2021-22, nearly $1 billion of taxpayer money went to vouchers. And in fact, today, Florida Policy Institute, which is doing amazing work on HB1, found that in this school year, 22-23, $1.4 billion of taxpayer money went to vouchers. And based on estimates and their very credible research, they are predicting that if HB1 does get passed, about $4 billion is going to go on vouchers in its first 2 years. Each year, $4 billion, because that bill will allow all of these kids who are going to private schools now, whose parents are paying for them, they will be allowed to get vouchers. So those kids now are in the mix. and there's no income limit on who can get a voucher. So this is really horrific. The team, our education action team right now has representation from 20 of our local leagues. And I have to tell you, we have great attendance at these meetings. I think only in the summer was attendance down, but we usually have about 15 or 16 people on the call or Zoom. And it's just remarkable what individual locals are doing and the wealth of information and resources they bring to our action team. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Shawn, are we ready?
We already did, I think we already did natural resources, and I guess I moved them to the front, so because Judy had to leave early, so I missed a couple slides there. So what can we do as league members to make things happen as we move forward into legislative session? Definitely for voting rights and election reform, join our voter services action team. Contact your local legislators and let them know you oppose any legislation related to voting that does not expand and protect voter access or that ensures elections remain fair and accessible. Be ready to mobilize in Tallahassee during the legislative session. Ask candidates about their position on expanded voting rights and accessible elections in candidate questionnaires or forums. Respond to and share the League of Women Voters of Florida and US action alerts widely. We really need to get out there and share the information because people, sometimes they don't get the information. For reproductive health and justice, you can join the FRF newsletter email list and stay informed. Join the LWV FL Reproductive Health and Justice Action Team by emailing Ginger Monday at gmonday@looma.biz and Stacey ENHANCEDVIBES That's all up there on your screen, and we'll be able to share this information later, I believe. Contact your legislators, let them know that you oppose abortion bans. Be ready to mobilize in Tallahassee during legislative session. Ask candidates about their position on abortion bans and other reproductive health and rights issues. Donate to abortion funds and volunteer to the different organizations that are working on so many parts of this issue. Also, it's really good if we all get together and use social media to amplify the reproductive justice messages. And certainly we have a whole list of ways that you can do this here. Join the Reproductive Health and Justice Facebook group. Follow Floridians for Reproductive Rights on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Follow Progress Florida on Facebook and Twitter. And know that other coalition members, including Planned Parenthood, Florida Now, Equality Florida, Florida Interfaith Coalition for Reproductive Health and Justice, are all involved in this, and we need to engage and share their messages, share their posts to your groups and your friends so they can stay informed and be active and get involved. For education, you can join the LWVFL's Education Action Team by emailing Dr. Jill Lewis-Spector at jill@wlvf.org. Contact your legislators and let them know that you oppose further expansion of funding of private education through a voucher program. Be ready to mobilize to Tallahassee during the legislative session to fight HB1 and ask candidates about their position on public education and voucher programs. For natural resources, you can join the natural resources team by emailing Judy at judyhushon@aol.com. contact your legislators and let them know you support Florida's environment. I mean, the good thing about the environment in many cases is that it is a bipartisan issue, even though the big money goes in and does some things they shouldn't do. But that you support the environment and wise management of our natural resources. Be ready to mobilize in Tallahassee during the session to fight back against special interests that are cannibalizing our environment, and ask candidates about their positions on protecting Florida's natural resources and environment. So that is all that we have. The one issue that I did not include, but that I would like to address briefly, while it is not a priority, it is gun safety. Just recently, a bill was put forth to have permitless carry. So in the past, you've had to go through background checks, training, fingerprinting, all kinds of, and licensing to be able to do concealed carry. And permitless carry means basically nothing. The states who have done this, the crime rates and everything else have jumped considerably. The ramifications are significant. During this call at 6 o'clock, there was a Speakers Bureau presentation on gun safety that covers permitless carry significantly. That will be available on the League website. So I think we need to make sure our Speakers Bureaus are getting out and in front of people very quickly with that presentation. And so I think now I'm going to turn it over to Alice if we've got some questions
We
in
do.
the chat.
Yes, we do. First, we have a question for Stacey, and that's what are some of the actions that reproductive health have been taking?
Okay, right now we're in a heavy letter to the editor writing campaign for whatever areas are covering the high school athletic forum menstruation. I believe one of the Palm Beach publications have been writing about it, and we are also encouraging our state members and to also encourage their other local members to donate to abortion funds or volunteer as escorts and speak about these issues with their friends and families. Last year, I attended this really interesting discussion. It was a survey result sponsored by NARAL, and it was really fascinating to see what messages they were trying to determine, what language is positive for favorables, positive for people that can be swayed, and then what turned off the opposition. And it was just really fascinating to see that empathy messaging it actually turns off the opposition. And for our position, which is pro, that is a positive, but it's very depressing or unfortunate that the real world scenarios of abortion bans are completely people just don't care about them. The people that oppose abortion just don't care about the real world effects of bans. And you could kind of see that from that national pushback or backlash when that 10-year-old girl was taken over state lines to a different state to receive an abortion. And even that own state's I want to say it was Indiana, even that own state's attorney general was going to try to try to issue criminal charges against this provider when there was never any doubt that she was following the law and doing her job and patient privacy, etc. So it is all hands on deck. I also urge everybody to please pay attention to the action alerts, and if this is an issue that you care about, start calling if a bill is filed and you received a state alert, please call your legislators, but also talk to your family and friends about doing that as well. You can email them, you can call them on the local level, you can call them at their Tallahassee office. They should all be recording the yay nays that they receive via phone call. So please email me or Ginger if you have any questions as we move into the legislative session.
Great. Okay, this one is for Jill. Any action to preserve DEI in state universities and colleges? What's happening in New College just presages what they will do to all state colleges.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. This is, we're talking about this right now. We have a subcommittee of the action team that is focused on higher education. And just yesterday we met. We have some ideas about what we might do. One of the things that we're hearing is that they want to close all these DEI offices at the universities and colleges. We need to find out what do those offices do? They're, they provide certain services, including services for students with disabilities. And we need to make sure that if those offices are closed, those services are still available. So we are, formulating a way. We'll also be having the action team, some of the people on the DEI committee of the league, of the state league, have expressed an interest in meeting with us. So I think they will be at our next meeting. And we may have a, conversation, but we're definitely aware of the need for doing something. And we're just now exploring that.
Thank you. Ruth Brandwayne, and I think this might be for Shawn. She would like everybody reminded of when the legislative session is, but it sounds like what she's asking is for league lobby days. Will buses be available from Sarasota or Tampa?
I don't think any buses will be available. I know that there's probably people going. I'm planning on going, so I'd be happy to carpool. I've carpooled before, so the registration is available on the state website on the homepage, and I think it's a matter of engaging other local members who would be interested in participating and doing a ride share.
Okay. We have one concerned about every day there's something new, and I think we all feel that way. That there's possibly a dress code for female legislators. We do have a question for Judy, but I think she has left, correct?
Yeah, she had another meeting that she had to attend, but we could try and get a response from her later, or you could email her with the question, and I'm sure she will respond.
We have a question about Robert is concerned that the Republican candidates for office no longer respond to, this would be for you, Shawn, to the League of Women Voters surveys. How do we make it clear the League is nonpartisan?
I think that's gotten harder and harder and harder to do based on the issues that historically, like education, voting rights, the environment, there are a lot of things that have always been bipartisan. It's gotten so much more complicated because now things have moved to such a challenging place. There is a whole procedure that national recommends that we go through when someone doesn't respond, where we let voters know that they're not responding. We did get a better response rate, statewide in many markets than counties than we've gotten in the past, this last election cycle, but it's a really difficult place for the league because the positions that we take on public education that used to be bipartisan have suddenly aren't bipartisan. And the same thing with voting rights and voting suppression. I mean, in the past, it's never been like this. In 2020, they said our election was great and that Florida didn't need to do anything. And then all of a sudden you have, 2 sessions where they come up with just draconian voter suppression stuff. And, the problem with vote by mail is that they may be, hurting themselves, because there's going to be a lot of frustrated, snowbirds who are going to think that they're registered because they all vote by mail because they're not here in November. And then all of a sudden they're not going to be registered. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I think we just have to, continue with the strategy of really pushing statewide how many people go to vote 411 for their information, and that if you're not included in that, you're missing a huge piece, of the voting public. But we're in pretty much what I would consider, I'm a native Floridian. I was a news reporter here in the state. This is an unprecedented time politically in Florida, and I think the league, it's going to be really challenging for the league on how we move forward through this time.
I do want to say that I had a 100-year-old woman that was absolutely beside herself because she said nobody above the county level that was Republican had answered any questions. And she's Republican. She thought it was outrageous. And I said, I want to film you and send it out. We have taken the position that we also promote Ballotpedia. We will tell them at the county level, we have good information, and Ballotpedia doesn't do a good job about with the county level and below. But above that level, that if you want a more complete picture, you really need to go to Ballotpedia. Stacey, you have your hand up.
I have a question for Jill, and I think it might be too wordy to type. But before I say, I just want to say, to add on to what Shawn was saying, it's very, I don't want to use the word perilous, but it's where everything is very uncertain. And part of the assault that seems to be coming at all angles is to discourage people like us. And so I'm very proud to be a member of the league, because we continue to push back and educate voters and advocate for our issues. And if only the public really understood how process oriented the league was, they would know that we are issue oriented and not politically aligned, right, with parties. So my question for Jill. So because the College Board removed those offensive parts of the AP African American Studies that Manny Diaz tweeted out about, does your committee know or have any finger on the pulse of whether or not DeSantis might be reconsidering, and or is the league taking any action on that?
We're not taking any action yet, because what the College Board had said when the governor first started or refused to allow the students to get the AP course, the College Board said they were in the process of revision. What we have now is the College Board has revised it, and that just happened. And I don't know, we don't know if he's going to allow students to take it. But I think that politically it would be smart for him to say, oh, okay, they've, kowtowed to me, they've done what I wanted, so I have that power, so now the students can take it. And I think that's what's going to happen.
Shawn, you raised your hand.
Yeah, that whole process is very interesting, because now the people who did the whole AP, they've said that what the New York Times said is totally false, and that they had made all of those revisions prior to the governor coming out with his statement against him. So it's going to be interesting, it's going to be interesting to see how this finishes playing out, because it's a lot of kind of conflicting storylines. And then I only have to share when it comes to education. Certainly Alice is familiar with this, but there's the one of the moms organizations in Manatee who's wanting to ban all these books, and they're very, very actively getting, lists of people to go to the school board meetings and everything else and send them all this stuff saying to ban these books because they're pornographic. So I started reading them.
Good for you, Shawn.
I just am like, really? And I had two kids who, went through public school. So my first book that I just finished is The House on Mango Street. And there wasn't any sex in it at all, but it was written by a Spanish woman in 1985, won tons of awards, is used worldwide in classes in college, and yet they want it completely banned. And what shocked me is in Manatee County, just for a high school student to read it, they have to get parental consent.
Mhm.
So there's stuff happening here that is, and, of course, I had kids, 10 years ago, my son's older, middle school friends were watching porn. So I'm like, if they think that they're going to be reading books that have, I don't know, it's so upsetting to me, but to read this book that was critically acclaimed, but it was written by a Spanish woman.
That's it.
Why are they banning it? Because sure was no sex in it.
Jill,
we got so
Jill-
much to
Jill
face.
raised her hand, and then I think we'll probably close.
Okay.
So we'll go from Jill back to Shawn.
All right, thank you. So it was either American Library Association or Pen America, I forget which, that pointed out that it's about 80% of those books that are on the banned book list are written by or are about people of color. And it's not about sex, it's about color and the Black experience, the minority experience. That is, some parents just don't want their kids reading those books. And the approach, the very hard approach that's been taken in Florida and that has been picked up by so many other states is very upsetting, because those books are the way that so many of the children identify with characters and come to love to read. And we are destroying that love of reading, and they develop their reading skills by reading those books. So it's just, it's an awful situation, and it's not going to improve until we become as organized as groups like Moms for Liberty has become. So thank you.
And have partnerships with other,
Yeah.
nonpartisan organizations that are
Right.
really working to accomplish the same goals. I do want to thank everyone so much for participating. If you can't attend lobby days, there's still letters to and meetings with your legislators before lobby days. There's emails, there's all kinds of ways that you can be active, sharing information with your friends. I was walking down the street, I live in Sarasota, and there was a vacationing person who's here every year. And I said, there's just a lot of political issues going on. She said, oh, I thought everybody loved Governor DeSantis. And I said, well, are you aware of A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H? And she was really shocked. So a lot of people are not getting all the information. So I think we've got to make sure that everyone is aware of exactly what is happening. But I want to thank you all for participating today. And Alice, do you have anything else?
No, thank you, everyone. And you will be not only getting a copy of the, I'll make a PDF of the presentation and you'll get a copy of that. And that will give you all the links that will be active. And also, our newsletters, we will, and on the Manatee League, we have a video page and it'll be the featured video. No, it won't.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, make sure you invite all of your friends to like the Manatee County Facebook page, and to like the Sarasota County Facebook page, because we have a lot of information that goes out about actions that are happening and events they need to show up at. Thank you.
Thank you.